Morning, my left guys. How y'all doing today? We're gonna do a video on Steve Shives called "Snowflakes and Free Speech on YouTube," and they're in quotations. So let's see what he has to say in his video today. Roll the intro.
There's an excellent op-ed published today in the New York Times. This is it right here. It's called "What Snowflakes Get Right About Free Speech." And
Putting like snowflakes in quotations. Why'd you do that? You know you're being snowflakes if you get offended by everything on a known planet. That doesn't go away in your narrative. So let's see what this article has to say about you guys. Roll it.
it's by Ulrich Baer, and I cannot recommend it to you highly enough. In the piece, Ulrich Baer describes how these student protesters who have come out to stand against speakers such as Milo Yiannopoulos or Richard Spencer in recent weeks and months at college campuses across the United States. These students who have often been attacked and vilified by people on the right as being anti-free speech.
Stevie Boy. You said those protesters are just innocent people just protesting Milo and Richard Spencer? No way. I got an article here that proves you wrong. Berkeley protests of Yiannopoulos cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. Yo. Protests that erupted at UC Berkeley ahead of a planned Wednesday appearance by right-wing commentator Milo Yiannopoulos caused hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage to the campus, the school said Thursday. The university blamed 150 masked agitators, not innocent protesters, for the unrest. They said they had to come to campus to disturb otherwise a peaceful protest. See, there was already a peaceful protest going on, but these agitators wanted to come and do it. Two Berkeley College Republicans were attacked while conducting an interview on the campus Thursday. Yeah, these are peaceful, like innocent people. They did nothing wrong. Yeah, right, Steve. UC Berkeley said, also in a prepared statement, the attackers who were not affiliated with the university were taken into custody by UC Berkeley police. Administrators decided to cancel the Wednesday's event about 2 hours before the Breitbart editor's speech. UC Berkeley removed him from the campus amid the violence, destruction of property out of concern for public safety. So, Stevie Boy, he said, oh, they're just protesters protesting Milo and Richard Spencer. No, that's not true at all. They caused hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage to a campus because they didn't like somebody that came to their campus. And there was already a peaceful protest going on, whatever, but these agitators came in and upscaled it and like turned it into a riot and like caused hundreds of thousands of dollars worth to the campus. So you're trying to say like they're just innocently doing this? No, Steve, not at all. If you just say that, it's really ignorant. I don't like Richard Spencer, no. But would I protest or do anything like that? No. He has the right to speak. It's the First Amendment after all. I like Milo, yes. Again, if I didn't like Milo, would I protest against him? No. Like I said, he has a right to speak. It's the First Amendment. And these people say, "Oh, we're just protesting, like innocently, you're not doing nothing wrong." No, you caused $100,000 worth of damage to a campus, and you set it on fire and ablaze. That doesn't sound like innocent to me, Stevie Boy. And for you to even justify that and say, "Nah, it's innocent," is really ridiculous of you, and I cannot even believe you're stating that claim. See, them attacking a campus and causing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage because of someone they didn't like is anti-free speech. It is, Steve. And for you to say it's not is ridiculous, Steve. And I can't even see how you begin to deny that at all. You can't even see that right in front of you that is anti-free speech. But it's you, so I would figure you wouldn't understand that at all.
Or putting their own feelings and their own sensitivities ahead of stalwart principles of the republic like free speech are snowflakes, and they just need to be silenced or shamed into going back to their dorms and studying instead of going out and hitting the streets and protesting people like Spencer or Yiannopoulos.
No one said they need to be shamed or silenced. No. That is also anti-free speech. Also, you shame or silence them. But you have the right to say what they're doing is wrong. If they're just doing peaceful protests, like saying we don't like Yiannopoulos or Spencer or whatever, to saying we don't like him and do it in a peaceful manner, that'd be fine. But once you start like turning it into a riot and getting and attacking people for liking someone you don't like, that's where it crosses the line, Steve, and it goes to anti-free speech. You see where I'm going with this? See, if it was just a peaceful protesters marching around, whatever, I would have no problem with that, and I'd be saying nothing now. I would not be calling them out on it. But once you upscale it to a riot and attack anybody that's not with you, that is the enemy per se, that takes it to a whole nother level and it crosses the line, Steve. So no one's trying to bully or shame them into silence. No way. That'd be wrong too. But I don't know where you're getting this claim that they're trying to bully them and shame them into silence, going back to their dorms and not doing anything at all. I don't know where you're getting that claim from. You're just making that up out of nowhere to make yourself look good and pushing a narrative as much as possible.
Bear argues really, really persuasively and really articulately that it is actually those folks, the so-called snowflakes, who are the true champions of free speech, not the apologists and the defenders of Spencer and Yiannopoulos.
Champions of free speech. May I remind you, I burned down campus because of someone they didn't like. That seems like anti-free speech to me, Steve. It really does. And you would say, oh, they're the champions of free speech and they're not silencing nobody. How come they just didn't let Yiannopoulos speak at their campus if they're so-called champions of free speech, Steve? How come they just didn't let him speak and let him be and just let him go and do what he has to do and go speak? How come they didn't let him do that? Why? Because they didn't like what he has to say and it hurt their little feelings. That's why. So they're anti-free speech, Steve. They protested and rioted and made it violent until they had to get him out of there where his safety was in danger because they didn't like what he had to say. So for you to call them champions of free speech is insulting, really, really insulting. I don't know what to say to you anymore, Steve. I really don't.
And all of the other assorted deplorable people, the hate mongers and purveyors of ignorance and intolerance who have for some reason been granted platforms on college campuses with alarming frequency over the last few years.
You want to call them like hateful and intolerant? Yes. Milo Yiannopoulos. I like Milo. Yeah. I like what he has to say, and he gets right down to the point, bare bones. No problem. Do I like Richard Spencer? No way. I don't like Richard Spencer whatsoever. But do you see me going around waving a flag, looking like a tonto, and like just being a complete idiot and saying I don't like Richard Spencer because he has something different to say than I do, and he believes something different than I do? No, I don't do that. Not at all. But you see these idiots all over this campus, like that are so butthurt and like so offended by everything that they can't let somebody of a different opinion speak because you're afraid to hurt their little feelings and their little sensitivities and hurt burst their little bubble that's around them that they have been shielded with the past couple of years in college. So they can't let them do that. That's why you're calling them like intolerant and all that because it hurts your delicate little feelings and like burst your bubble of like feelings that you had over like past few years that you were granted with and like you were in the same group with other people and they say, yeah, I agree with you and all that. I'm not going to challenge your ideas at all. But as soon as someone that's different that comes to challenge your ideas, you just run away and hide and cower and call them intolerant and all that. You can't just go and do that. That's not how the real world works, Steve. You got to listen to different opinions, Steve. You got to. That's how debate works and that's how discussion works. If you don't listen to other opinions, Steve, you're going to shut down free discussion and free debate. And that'd be terrible. Like, nothing will get done, Steve. Nothing will get done.
And in this piece, Baird covers a lot of really interesting ground. He talks about the limited value of debates in situations like this. He talks about the idea that there are certain topics that really shouldn't be held up for public debate.
What kind of topics Bear comes up with that are not allowed to be discussed in debates. Ooh, and if you dare speak them, ooh, we shall protest against you and get you off campus immediately. right away and make sure you don't have a platform. Let's see what topics that are there not to be spoken without a hint of asking Steve Shives.
That universities shouldn't feel a responsibility to host debates over if there is a proposed debate or a proposed sort of implied debate, which is often the excuse used when awful people like Spencer and Yiannopoulos and others of their ilk are invited to speak at college campuses.
You don't like a proposed debate where a certain topic might come up that might hurt your feelings. That shouldn't be hosted at college campuses at all. Hello, Steve. You know what college is about? College is about learning and challenging yourself to listen to other ideas other than your own, Steve. If you shut those kind of debates down where like people debate like different ideas, Steve, that's not going to get anything done, Steve. And that's make people not learn, not be challenged. And people have participation trophies and people agreeing with them and say, hey, yeah, your position is good. I'm not going to challenge it. But as soon as someone comes along, real well and challenges their position, they want to whine, hide, and cower under like a desk or something. Say, oh no, how dare they challenge my position? Because it was never challenged in college, Steve. So if you take away those kind of debates, Steve, that's what's going to happen to people in a real world. So I don't propose you do that. That sounds terrible. It sounds like a terrible world to live in.
The excuse made by people who, even by people who claim not to want to defend their ideology, they say, well, we need to hear them out because their ideas need to be heard in order to be argued about and rejected.
Their ideas need to be heard in the debate and what their position is, and it needs to be challenged by another person of the opposite position. So that way they can learn something. Like, hey, hey, I learned something out of that debate, or no, didn't learn something out of the debate. I'm just going to keep my position. So I just have to debate anyway, like to listen to a person in a different position and to be open minded. That's what those kind of debates are about, Steve. You need to have those kind of debates because like you need them to hear different sides and their positions to make up your mind where you stand on an issue or anything that you want to go to in life. So that's why it needs to be doing that. And you think it's that harmful? It's not, Steve. It's actually really helpful to get people to see a new perspective or to get a new position on things and to reevaluate certain things and like to set up something and like to get a new perspective and gain new intel or light on things. That's what those kind of debates do, Steve. They don't harm. They help people learn how to argue better and debate better. And if they want to make YouTube videos later, they learn how to make responses and like learn how to debate. And also, they learn to see a new position they didn't see before. They were like, man, I learned something from that person. Wow, I'm glad we had this debate. See, that's what debates do, Steve. They don't harm, they help. Those proposed debates help, Steve. They help people restructure what they were thinking before and like help them like reevaluate some things and like just tweak the little things that they had in the debate that didn't do so well. So that's what they do, Steve. They don't help harm you. They help you. You know what I'm saying? They help you like to be a better arguer with in your life. If you ever come across that. So they're not harming you, Steve. They're helping you.
And Bear makes the point that in most cases, people like Richard Spencer and Milo Yiannopoulos have nothing new to say and will not be informing anyone in the audience about their views or telling anyone anything that they haven't heard already. You are merely, by giving them an audience, by giving them a platform, you are merely enabling them and allowing them to perpetuate their hatred and their intolerance and propagate their twisted and in many cases harmful and dangerous ideology.
They have nothing new to say, Steve. Did you go up to them beforehand and say, hey, do you have anything new to say? They're like, no. Do you have anything new? No. Well, you can't say that, Steve. You can't just assume that right out the gate, Steve. You can't assume that right out the gate because that makes you look foolish a little bit to assume that right out the gate, Steve. And second of all, harmful, twisted ideology. Isn't that what your side is doing? Your side is more harmful than Milo or Richard Spencer talking. Your side burned down the campus and are protesting just useless things and just wasting their time and not being productive at all and going to class, but just wasting their time protesting and stuff over stuff That's a minor issue altogether, Steve. So you want to call them harmful and their ideology twisted? You need to look in a mirror, buddy.
And I've linked to the piece in the description box of this video. I urge all of you to go read it. But there is one particular passage that I want to share with you. Ulrich Bear says, quote, "The idea of freedom of speech does not mean a blanket permission to say anything anybody thinks."
That sentence right there, Steve, that's the definition of free speech. You can say anything you want, Steve. And it's allowed to be challenged, Steve. You can't say anything you want, and it's allowed to be challenged. And somebody say, hey, that's wrong. You can't say that, or anything like that, or informal, or otherwise. So, yeah, that is the definition of free speech right there, Steve. You have the right to say anything you want, any opinion you want, and it's allowed to be challenged without fail. And you're allowed to rebuttal back. See, this is where it comes around about to the debate, Steve. You want to get rid of that format on like college campuses. You're allowed to say anything you want, but and it's allowed to be challenged, Steve. Come on. It shouldn't be this hard to figure out. And this guy that stated that, Bear, Bear Aspirin, whoever, is stupid. He doesn't even know the first definition of free speech, man. Not at all. That is the first definition of free speech, man. Come on. I see you and Bear have the same thinking process, man. You both share a brain, and it's both pumping the same ideology into both of your brains. No wonder you agree with them and you link the article in the description below. No wonder.
It means balancing the inherent value of a given view with the obligation to ensure that other members of a given community can participate in discourse as fully recognized members of that community.
Anyone that's not part of that community is not allowed to challenge our thoughts or positions whatsoever. Only people within that circle group can allow to challenge our thoughts. How in the world does that make sense? How are you going to get anything done if you both believe the same thing? How is that going to be a debate or get anything done? It's like throwing two stones at each other and they're bouncing off each other. It's not going to work, Steve. You need to have one person that thinks this thing and someone that thinks a totally different thing than the other person. If you just have the same people arguing back and forth, it's nothing. It's not going to get nothing done. It's like watching two snails race. It's not going to be that entertaining or it's not going to be productive in the slightest at all. None of them are going to learn anything from it. They both think the same thing, Steve. Come on.
Free speech protections, not only but especially in universities, which aim to educate students in how to belong to various communities, should not mean that someone's humanity or their right to participate in political speech as political agents can be freely attacked, demeaned, or questioned.
Let me translate what Steve is saying. In other words, you're not allowed to challenge someone else's position or stance or opinion on anything. Not at all. You're just allowed to be nice and agree with everything they're saying and not say any words whatsoever and just politely walk away and somebody says something and you personally feeling deep down in your gut don't agree with anyone to debate with them. You can't do that now. This is what Bear is saying. You can't do that now because it's attacking someone and you're demeaning them or you're questioning their meaning of life or any position that they have. Life is about questioning people and challenging their positions, Steve. His life is not about like calling to people and say, "No, I'm not going to challenge your position because your feelings will get hurt." Screw that. You're supposed to challenge their intellectual ability and attack their position head on, like with facts and logic and stuff. And you're allowed to question why they believe this or why they stand against it or why they stand for it, Steve. So what Bear wrote here is the same SJW PC culture garbage that is being fed on college campuses and is the reason what is wrong with that kind of thing. Oh my God, this is terrible.
Bear also points out how the abilities of folks in marginalized groups, for instance, trans people, people of color, undocumented immigrants, and the list goes on, have been attacked and undermined by others in the name of freedom of speech.
Have any proof of that? or any cases like in a link in the description below or something like that, to where I'm not denying that doesn't happen, but you have like any like cases where that happened like a college campus or something like that in the description. If you don't have anything like to back up what you're saying, I'm sorry. I'll have to prove your claims false, and what you're saying is completely false, Steve. It's the same as last time where you were saying those things and it was completely false. So I don't doubt that happened, but if you don't have any evidence to back it up, I'm going to have to prove your claims false and not true at all whatsoever.
And that reminds me, as many things in this discussion often do, of the paradox of tolerance, which is something that I have spoken about in videos before, and a lot of you already know what it is, but just in case you haven't heard of the paradox of tolerance, it was stated most famously by Karl Popper, who said that if you want a truly tolerant society, the one thing you must not be tolerant of is intolerance.
If you were for tolerance and like hearing somebody else's opinion, you would not block everybody on Twitter, Steve, that doesn't agree with you and your narrative whatsoever. If you were for that tolerance and you've spoken on it before and you like hammered it in and you got it like it's so like champion for free speech and all that, you wouldn't block everybody whatsoever. And you're the intolerant one, Steve. The other people are not being intolerant. It's you that won't allow people to talk to you that have different opinions. And if someone breathes on you that doesn't have the same opinion as you, you will just run and cower and not come out till they're gone. Like if it was a bear coming near you, like, oh no, better hide, man. This bear is about to attack me. You can't do that, Steve. You really can't say, oh, you're tolerant and then be intolerant at the same time, Steve. It doesn't work, Steve. It doesn't mesh. It really doesn't, Steve. Not at all. You can't say, oh, I'm tolerant of other things that agree with me, but intolerant of other things that don't agree with me. That doesn't work, Steve. It really doesn't. You're not going to fool me with that.
The paradox is there can be no such thing as perfect tolerance. Because if you are tolerant of everything, including intolerance, then ultimately intolerance will take over. The intolerant will impose their will on the tolerant, and you will wind up with a final product of an intolerant society.
Let me grasp what you're trying to say. You're trying to say if you allow intolerance, which is like Milo and Richard Spencer speaking, that we are going to have an intolerant society. Steve, that doesn't make any sense. By allowing Milo and Richard Spencer to speak, we have a tolerant society, not an intolerant society, Steve. Not at all. Allowing them to speak is allowing them the First Amendment right to say their ideas and opinions, allow them to be challenged, therefore having a tolerant society. Intolerant will not being allowed them to speak and silencing them each and every way by threatening them and like destroying the things that they would come to or the events they would come to and make them cancel the events. That's being intolerant, which your site has done already. I mentioned the $100,000 worth of damage done to Berkeley campus because they didn't like what Milo was saying. That's intolerance, Steve. Letting Milo and Richard Spencer speak is not intolerant. It's being tolerant and allowing somebody else to speak. And like, if you want to challenge your opinions later, cool, do that. If you don't, fine, that's all right with me. That's being a tolerant society. Just simply allowing Milo and Richard Spencer to speak is not having an intolerant society whatsoever, Steve. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're really trying to grasp for straws here where there are no straws to grasp, Steve. You're holding on to nothing. You're falling off a cliff right now. Stop trying to pick a point where there's no point to be had.
Which was allowed to happen in the name of tolerance. See, a lot of folks in the atheist and skeptical community especially believe that when they are defending the rights of awful people like Spencer or Yiannopoulos, or awful groups like neo-Nazi groups or the Ku Klux Klan or other white supremacist or white nationalist groups to speak, that they are doing something good, that they're defending the principle of freedom of speech.
You're creating a straw man here. Name me one time that an atheist or a skeptic in the atheist or skeptic community has defended the KKK or neo-Nazis. Name me one time that has happened. You can't because that has never happened. As far as I know, that has never happened here. You're just making up a case to make yourself sound good. You're just puffing yourself up Like how you puff up like an article in like a newspaper. That's what you're doing. You're puffing stuff up to make it look good and sound good and like catchy to the ears, Steve. No atheist or any skeptic or in the community has defended neo Nazis or the KKK. None have I ever known has done that. If they did, I would call them out on it because I don't like the KKK or neo Nazis. I don't. But none has done that, Steve. Where are you getting this claim from? You just getting it from anonymous sources that say that they're neo Nazis or Ku Klux Klan people? No, Steve. You can't just make a general brass statement like that and not have any evidence or nothing to back it up, Steve. It makes you look silly. It makes you really look foolish. It really does. You can't do that. That's arguing 101. You can't do that, Steve. You can't make up a fallacious argument and have nothing to back it up with. You can't. Man, if you did that during my like English class during college, man, your behind would have gotten an F. If you didn't explain what your argument was, you made up a fallacious argument like that. You didn't explain what it was. F automatic. That's where I learned how to argue, debate with logic. That's where I learned how to do it. You can't make a statement like that, Steve, and not have nothing to back it up. It just stays like a big old cloud of statement, and you have nothing right here to back it up. Nothing. It's like if someone was going up for like a stunt or something, and you didn't have a mat down here. What's the point of doing that anyway? Why did you do it? You can't do that, Steve. Not at all. That's genuinely dishonest, Steve. I can't believe you did that.
They think, well, I have to defend freedom of speech for people like that because I want to preserve it for people like me and for other people. And that's a wonderful idea, and that's a wonderful concept, and it's a wonderful principle. But I don't think that it translates to real life perfectly.
You described, Steve, never happened. Because I've never seen one that defended the KKK and neo Nazis. Never. So that statement you just made previously is blown wide open because that has never happened, Steve. You can't do that. Not at all. You can't make a statement like that and continue on. No, you gotta go back and prove that that happened. You gotta go back to your previous and prove that happened, Steve. You can't just say something like that and go on like pretend like you didn't say it. You gotta prove that happened, Steve, or else you look so foolish, Steve. Come on. I can't believe this. I really can't believe you're arguing like this. Man. Man, oh man.
I think that if you truly care about freedom of speech and the situation you want to see realized is the maximum number of people able to exercise their freedom of speech.
What you're saying is that you should restrict certain people's free speech because it doesn't agree with you? That's North Korea. That is North Korea in a nutshell, my friend. So you want to be like North Korea? I'm sorry, my friend. No. No. I don't want to live like that. That's terrible. No. No. Don't do that. No, no, no. I wouldn't want to live in a society like that, Steve. How dare you propose something like that? No.
In our society, able to participate in political conversations, especially in ways that will be recognized and valued. And if you particularly would like to see this happen for groups of people who have been historically disenfranchised, who have been historically ignored or silenced or erased, whose contributions and ideas and voices have not been valued.
People that allowed to exercise their free speech are the people that you think are still disenfranchised now that were disenfranchised way back then. That is the most idiotic thing I have ever seen. Look at my face, Steve. I'm one of those minorities you're talking about. And I'm not disenfranchised whatsoever. So you're just playing the old speech victim complex thing to get people to agree with you, agree that they're disenfranchised and they need to speak out and need certain things and to restrict people's speech because it does not fall in line with their own ideology, Steve. That is crazy for you to propose, Steve. It's really crazy how your mind works. Man, We need doctors to look at your brain because it's really crazy.
Then I don't see how you can justify choosing to defend neo-Nazis and people like Richard Spencer and people like Milo Yiannopoulos.
Time, Steve. Richard Spencer is not a neo-Nazi. He's a white supremacist. Yes, I don't agree with that whatsoever. Not whatsoever. I disagree with that altogether. I'm not gonna say I agree with Spencer whatsoever, but if you're gonna label somebody, label them right. And as far as them speaking, like Spencer and Milo speaking, they have the right to do that, Steve. And I will defend that to the day I die. I take my last breath, Steve. And whether you disagree with that is none of your concern. If you disagree with that, tough. I want to defend that, Steve. I'm gonna break your little bubble that you've been in all these years and expose you to some like real knowledge, facts, logic that you have not been exposed to. You just been in an echo chamber your whole life, Steve. And you don't know what real logic, fact, and anything is, Steve, outside of your echo chamber. You have no idea whatsoever.
When they are protested, when their events are shut down by students at those colleges who have simply had enough and refuse to allow people like that to use their microphones and their stages and their venues to speak to their audience and spread their hatred and intolerance.
$100,000 worth of damage done to a Berkeley campus because they didn't like what somebody was saying. That's the last time I'm going to repeat it, Steve. And if they don't like who's speaking, tough. Get over it. Either go to the thing and listen and get a different perspective from it and say, hey, yeah, I may change my mind like I did before, or don't go and just stay in your dorms all day, listening to music and playing video games. You can do that and not destroy a campus because of what you don't like and what you were indoctrinated with within your own PC culture and SJW culture. That can be real simple. Go and listen and get a different perspective, or don't go and just relax, chill, drink coffee, drink soda, whatever you do. Just relax and don't tear up a campus because you don't like the person that is speaking, Steve. You can do that. You have one of those two options. You don't like either one of those two options? Tough. Those are the two options you have. That's what I would say if I was running a campus. You don't like the person that's speaking? You have an option to stay in your dorm, play your video games, chill, do your homework, whatever. If you want to go to the speech, fine. Go and learn the different perspective. But you will respectfully sit down, listen, and talk to the person afterwards if you have something to say. Never interrupt them when they're speaking whatsoever. Never do that. That is rude. Very, very rude of you to do. You can talk to them afterwards and like discuss whatever you need to discuss, but never during the speech. That is rude for you to interrupt somebody. So those are your two choices. Deal with it.
If you believe in freedom of speech, you should be on the side of the protesters. You should be not defending the rights of people like Spencer and Yiannopoulos and others like that to spread their hatred.
The protesters on this one, I'm sorry. Because they did damage to a campus because they didn't like who was speaking instead of just relaxing in the dorms or whatever and chilling and not doing that and just ignoring what was going on. So I'm not on the side of the protesters whatsoever. No, I can't do that. In good conscience, I can't do that. I'm on the side of free speech, allowing Yiannopoulos and Spencer to speak where they choose, so to please. Allowing them to speak wherever they want, Steve, without having worry, the fear and safety of their lives, and worrying that they're going to get something thrown at them because they have a different opinion. That's the side I'm on. I'm not on the side of the protesters that destroy campus. I call them thugs that destroy the campus. They're no longer students. Once they destroy a campus like that, they're thugs. To me, they're criminals. They're no longer students. They're thugs and criminals, and that's all they will be.
This is not an easy issue because we are human beings, we are imperfect, and there will never be a perfect system for determining who it is best to listen to and platform and who it is best to ignore.
At one point, Steve, I do agree. There will be no perfect system to who to listen to in their platform. So you got to pay attention in life who to listen to, who not to listen to. Don't just listen to somebody because like they sound real good and like sweet talking you sweet words and stuff. Listen to what they're saying and what their ideas are and what their opinions are and what their ideologies are, and get the true colors on them. Have a debate with them, talk with them, discuss it in full, like in private and stuff. Get to really know them. And then you'll say, yeah, I'm for this or I'm not for this. Let me get out of here. So yeah, there will never be a perfect system, Steve, but you need to have debate and discussion. That's the only way that it will become a perfect system, Steve.
But we can at least decide amongst ourselves that the principle we should follow is not only freedom of speech, but guaranteeing freedom of speech to the largest possible number of people, maximum freedom of speech. And we should not let our idealization of the principle of perfect freedom of speech or perfect tolerance prevent us from achieving the attainable goal of maximum tolerance or maximum freedom of speech.
Yeah, Steve, sure. But you got to let people with different opinions speak, Steve. You can't just be in your own little circle, in your own little bubble, Steve. You gotta let people with different opinions speak and let them talk and like see whether you agree with it or not. You can't just outright disagree with it because you haven't heard the person out yet, Steve. So you gotta learn how to step outside your bubble a little bit. You got to, Steve. That's the only way you're gonna achieve like with a perfect system of debate and discussion, Steve. That's the only way we're gonna do it. If you allow them to listen. If you don't allow them to speak or whatever, we're always going to be stuck at the bottom of not perfect. But then if you let them to speak, we'll get up to the top of being a perfect like system of debate and discussion and rational thinking and logic and stuff instead of feels over reals and my feelings count before logic and reason do.
A society where people who push ignorance and intolerance and hateful, dehumanizing ideologies are, legally speaking, free to say whatever they wish, but practically speaking, are not invited on prominent radio or TV shows or podcasts or YouTube channels, are not given lucrative book deals, are not invited to speak on stage at colleges and universities.
Kind of ironic, Steve, since you were spreading like intolerance and like stuff that you have a YouTube channel right now. Isn't it kind of ironic what you were just saying? Think about it, Steve. Let it soak in your head. Let the wheels turn in your head a little bit. Allow you to think about that, Steve.
And generally speaking, find it difficult, if not impossible, to amplify and spread their awful messages beyond their little circle of ignorance and hate. That sounds pretty damn good to me. How about you?
Steve, it does not sound good to me. You cannot restrict people's free speech whatsoever, Steve. You gotta allow them to talk and challenge their ideas with rational and logical thought, Steve, not with just feels over reals and my feelings matter before logic and thought, Steve. What you're proposing is crazy. That you restrict somebody's speech because they don't agree with your certain ideology or thing that you go by every single day. So you should allow all people to speak, no matter. Even you, Steve, I would allow you to speak with me. If we were having a debate, Steve, I will allow you to talk first, then I will talk, then we go back and forth and like exchange ideas, and then like I would get a feelings seeing like, yeah, well, I know what this guy's about. I don't agree with what he's saying whatsoever, and I will challenge that. You see what I'm saying, Steve? You can't restrict people's speech. What have we learned today? We learned that Steve wants to restrict free speech to people that have different opinions other than him and only reserve it for his buddies in his own echo chamber and little bubble. That's not going to get you nowhere, Steve. It never will. And good luck if you're trying to do that because it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to hit the roof. You're going to hit your head on the roof, Steve, if you try to do that. That's going to be it for me, my electrolytes. Have a great day and stay awesome.